Between the car tax chat and the cat food runs, my wife sent me these pictures. She wanted me to make this. She trusts me to make her clothes.
From the pictures, I see an oversized wraparound vest with drop shoulders, band collar and ties. The silhouette is straight, so I'm planning to draft a menswear body block to my wife's measurements, modify it with a Japanese style drop shoulder, and from there I'll add the shaping and any additional details.
For materials, I have this bag from the charity shop. I got myself this curtain. It's a beautiful floral print. These look mass manufactured, British made fabric by Arthur Sanderson and Sons Limited. That's the information that I've got. What else? It's also lined. It's got the, if anybody knows what these are called, that'd be appreciated because I need to learn that. But this will come in handy for a future project. I'll obviously use this for the shell, probably use this to line the jacket. So I've pretty much got everything that I'll need for a low cost of $7.99. The first thing, of course, is pattern drafting, but this one's going to be a bit more freehand. Should be a curious process, worth watching. Maybe don't skip ahead.
I've drafted the body block. Watch my usual guide to make your own. And it definitely isn't intended to take a woman's measurements, but I just need a rough shape from which I can develop the form. First, I want to tackle the shoulders, and I block in the main parts of the pattern. Positioning my tape on the shoulder line, I measure from the centre line the distance from the nape of the neck to the bottom of her deltoid. This is a man's shoulder length, according to Make Your Own Japanese Clothes. A woman's should be a little longer, finishing between the shoulder and the elbow. I measure down 20mm from this point and add the shoulder line with a curve, and then join this point to the side seam with another curve. I fuss about with a collar shape and the seam allowances, then draft the pattern for the back, but really, this needs a toile. My wife reluctantly agreed to appear on camera for a fitting, and we're miles off from where we need to be. Firstly, there isn't enough width in the garment to give that oversized silhouette. The shoulders are too short, the arm sink is too high, and the hem needs to be dropped considerably. There was also a request for pockets. I return to the drafting paper. The neckline works so that can stay. I add the new drop, which ends up being 72cm. I extend the shoulder line and mark the new length. I mark the new bottom for the armhole and end up adding 6cm to the width for a total of 24 once the garment is constructed. With the side seam in place, I draft the new shoulder and armhole curves. For the front, I bring back the original pattern and mark in the collar. This gives me the edge for the overlap and I can draft in the rest of the pattern.
Hi, we don't normally do it this way, but with Wendy's new video came out and I'm ripping her off. I'm so sorry, but I'm also like, if you're going to copy people, you might as well copy the best. These are the photos I took of toile version 2 and I'm really happy. My wife's pretty happy too, so this is a good step forward. But we're just gonna do a wee comparison between the inspiration and where we're at with it. So it's definitely longer, but my wife seems happier with that length, so I'm not going to mess with that. The oversized silhouette seems stronger. It feels like it's working quite nicely. The only thing that I'm not sure about, this shape is okay. I mean, it's not okay. Look at that dip. That's terrible compared to what's going on here. So the armhole is much smaller on the inspo, and I maybe have to look at how I'm shaping this curve here. I've put this nice shallow curve on the pattern, but actually maybe I need more of a sharp angle to make it work. So you can see here that there's a definitive turn, but it's hard to tell because maybe they've just tucked it down in the flat. There's definitely a fold on that side. Maybe there's a fold on that side too. But there's something far cleverer going on with that shoulder shape than what I've applied in my garment. Am I going to change the pattern again? Well, you can find out now, can't you?
After another fitting, I chopped the top off the sleeve and brought it in by 4cm. I ripped the seams in preparation for the final construction and curved the left panel to match the inspo's asymmetric design. I also bought some batting, realised I hadn't read the product description properly, and bought some more. I lay out the lining, wrong side up, lay out the batting, top with the shell right side up, and cut out the panels. While the batting and lining was matched up, I basted the two panels together with a tailor stitch. I then marked out a grid at 45 degrees to the grain line and quilted the panels together. This gave me beautiful neon hatching to distract from the ugly sun-faded fabric. The last side mission was to cut lining for 2 pocket bags. I drafted a quick pattern that won't fit anything useful, and folded the fabric to cut 4 panels at once. I could now assemble. The lining is joined right sides together with a straight stitch and a zigzag to bind. The side seam pockets are laid out on the right side facing inwards, and I make sure to match their placement below the armhole. These are stitched down, flipped out and pressed, then edge stitched into place. I pin the shell right sides together and sew the shoulders and side seams with a straight stitch and zigzag. Okay, now to join the shell and the lining. I tackle the armholes first. This is a tricky join that is difficult to visualise and explain. The Jeff film covers it in detail, but I join the first on the outside of the garment, right sides together. Turn it through the armhole into position and then match up the other armhole, again with the right sides together. This is a little more awkward, but I go slow and think carefully. I can now turn the garment right sides together to close up the hem, again with a straight and zigzag stitch. The garment is turned out through the neckline and all the tricky bits have worked out. I give the garment a press and run a matching top stitch on the bottom edge and armholes. Last step, the collar. I lay out another panel of the curtains and cut a strip on the fold. It might have been better to cut on the bias, but I wanted to conserve the last of the fabric. The strip is pressed in half. Opened out, I eyeball a seam allowance and press that over too. I fold in one end and press again. I sew down the folded end, and after pinning the collar on the inside of the garment with the raw edges lined up, I sew in place. I didn't actually measure the length of the collar, I just cut a strip longer than I needed. Out of frame, I'm trimming the collar to the right side, folding it over and stitching it down. The collar was folded around the raw edge and finally stitched down on the outside of the garment, before adding parallel lines of decorative stitching to finish, and this is the finished garment. And, well, it doesn't fit. After all those fittings, once I added the batting, the garment just doesn't hang in the same way, and now looks weird. But it fits me perfectly.
So I'm feeling a little bit raw on this one. Because I was making it for my wife, there was a level of care and attention that I wouldn't normally put into my projects. You know, constantly in the back of my head was like, well, she's not going to wear it unless it's perfect. Because of that, the quality of sewing on this garment is the highest I've achieved. But we fitted it again and again and again, and it's just not right. The entire garment changed completely as soon as we put the batting in it. The caveat is always like, make your toile out of the same fabric that you're going to make the finished thing in. Yeah, I should have added batting at the toile. I don't know. If anybody's been through this kind of process before with a toile, where you're using multiple layers and stuff, I'd be really interested to know if you have any thoughts on this and like what I could have done, because the idea of having to have made 2 of these with the batting attached just to see whether or not it fits or not is a bit brutal. That seems like above and beyond. But hey ho, what are you gonna do? I've got yet another garment that fits me really, really well. That's the absurd thing. Like, this thing is just a perfect fit. It's very comfortable. I have worn it outside as well. As promised, I posted up on our streetwear, and to my abject surprise, it got a fairly warm response. There are faults, of course there's faults. I made notes. One of the things that happened a few times, and we'll see, yeah, here we go. Snapping threads, and what I did, I just added a bar tack over the end of it. The one on the collar, so I did it in line with the thing, and it actually looks great. Adds a nice wee detail to the jacket. So that's going to be intentional from here on in. I didn't really talk about how I put the ties in during the making process. I left this open, inserted it in, and then I just added a couple of lines of decorative top stitching. These underarm ones, not so good, I'm afraid. I should have done this at the point that I was joining the armholes. What I ended up doing was unpicking part of the undergarment and then just sort of forcing this in. However, I do have a reason why that didn't happen. I didn't know what I was going to do for the collar. There was a point where I had a scarf and I was going to do a really contrasting color, and my wife took one look at that scarf and said no. So matching color instead with the neon top stitching was the better option. I had planned to make these ties out of whatever I was going to use for the contrasting collar, but that stopped being a thing, so I just grabbed some shoelaces. The only other note that I have on this, I should have added side seam pockets on the inside, because then this garment would have truly been reversible. That is the lover's jacket. I don't know. It needs a name, doesn't it? I've not given it its name. Maybe the lover's jacket. I think that's appropriate. That's what it's going to get called. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it. I don't know if I want it. I sewed this for somebody else. I kind of want somebody else to have it. So I think I'm going to try and sell this. So I'm not going to make too much of an effort. I have a Ko-fi page. If you want to own this thing, I will be posting it up on there. You'll be able to shop for it there. I'll absolutely measure this up and try and give details of sizing. I don't know what price I'm going to sell it for. I worked really hard on it. I put a lot of hours into it. I spent a bit of money on it. So you know what? I want that back. And if it doesn't sell, I'm going to just, wear it every so often, and it can languish on the shop until some person sees it and says, this is the vest for me. The other thing, okay, so that's not the only thing that's going to go to the shop. I made a zine. I don't know if anybody cares about zines. This is the artist proof. I'm still in the process. These aren't coming out anytime soon. As of recording this, we've got another 11 subscribers to go before we hit the magic 1,000 number. It's got a couple of essays. It's got an essay in it, and it's got some weird prose in it. I'm going to make 50 copies. Those are at the printers right now. I've got some plans to actually do some proper promotion on that. That'll be coming to the channel soon. What's the other business? What's going on? Cuff swap. That's what's coming next. Made a little tutorial video, so that so there's slightly less of me wittering. And after that, I'm going to do some home furnishing. I've got 2 little home furnishing projects on the go. So that's what's coming up for the next wee while. Otherwise, oh my God, you made it this far into the video. Thank you so much. Generally it's about 14% that get this far in. So I genuinely really appreciate you for making it this far in. Have a lovely day. Subscribe, blah, 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 all that stuff. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.